Welcome to episode 21 of Jack Colley's Black Book. Today is July 25. I think that's Christmas in July. I think that means that there is a local radio station that's playing Christmas music all day. No. We've been talking about acts of violence with specificity to acts of violence within already established relationships, because the research and the literature are clear that it is more the rule than the exception that acts of violence, even sexual abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, usually usually occur in already established relationships. So it's going to occur in families, it's going to occur coworkers, people you already know, people you have established relationships with. And in thinking about responses to this, I kept coming up with this blood is thicker than water. And a while ago, I had a client who was involved with a family member. And this particular family member, there was some drug addiction, but there was also some physical abuse. And I remember sitting in the office with this client, and this client kept saying, well, blood is supposed to be thicker than water, right? Like, isn't blood supposed to be thicker than water? It was almost like she wanted me to affirm with her that, yes, your family is supposed to be more important than everyone else. And I think that this phrase is often interpreted that way. But in that particular context, I felt like that was not a healthy way to look at this. It wasn't healthy for her to be in this situation and for her to think that there was this rule that somehow family was supposed to be the most important. And we do hear this all the time. I mean, we do hear people say, oh, family is the most important. And my response is always going to be, well, that depends. I mean, let's not come up with these really rigid statements that family is always most important. It's like, no, not always. But anyway, so blood is thicker than water. I remember saying to her, I said, you don't need blood every day. If you need a transfusion, maybe that would be the time you call your family. Because I'm not a medical doctor or a surgeon, but I think that if you need to have a blood transfusion, if you need to have an organ, if you need to have something, I believe they're going to look for your family first. So what I said to her is, you need water every day. You don't need blood every day. You only need blood if there's an emergency. So what individuals do you have in place in your life that are your daily water? And that seemed to resonate with her. And I kind of liked that. And I've used that kind of analogy since, or that little twist or different perspective on this, is that you need water every day. You don't necessarily need blood every day. Well, interestingly enough, I was looking for maybe an image. And so I was doing some Googling because I was trying to find an image to go with this. And I came across the original saying, so blood is thicker than water. And I found this on several sites, and all of the sites looked reputable, so I'm comfortable just sharing this without a specific source. But the original saying was, the blood of a covenant is stronger than the water of the womb. So in a sense, this saying actually started out as kind of an opposite perspective. Is blood thicker than water? Well, not the blood of family, not your familial blood, but the blood of a covenant. And so what is a covenant? A covenant is a relationship that you enter into with somebody. You knowingly choose to enter into a relationship in covenant. And that is stronger than the water of the womb. Now, clearly, water of the womb is referring to coming out of the womb, coming out of the water, coming out of the unconscious into the world, out from the water into the world, coming unconscious into consciousness. So we talked about that in one of the first episodes. But the water of the womb is clearly referring to the relationship between the child and the mother. So the blood of the covenant is stronger than the water of the womb. That is to say, the relationships that you have that you choose to enter are going to be stronger than your familial relationships. And I think that that is an important little construct, distinction to make as we talk about violence and how it comes through different relationships. So we are working through different responses to violence in relationships, and we're on the second one. So the first one was it's impossible to forgive and forget. So watch the last episode if you want information on that. But it's impossible to forgive and forget. That's not a good way. That's not a good approach. Now, the second approach then would be to do the opposite of that, which is I'm never going to forgive and I'm never going to forget. So the idea of never forgetting is that you are actively, perpetually doing something to keep the memory alive, or you're just letting it fester. Like it's just coming into your mind day in and day out, which is creating some, perhaps some obsessive compulsive drive in you. It might be causing a lot of anxiety that what happened to you keeps coming to the surface. And then the idea of never forgiving, that just kind of seems heavy, because to me, if I think about a person who doesn't forgive, I'm thinking of an individual who has resentment. I'm thinking of an individual who is just seeking justice. I might be thinking of an individual who's having fantasies of harming the individual or seeing the other individual ill or suffering, having done to them what they did to you. It just seems really heavy and not a healthy way to live life, to have this idea that I'm never going to forgive and I'm never going to forget. So I want to give a third, and this is kind of where I landed. I want to give another suggestion here. Forgive. And I am going to define forgiveness as something that I do in order to just relieve the weight off my shoulders. In other words, I'm going to forgive the aggressor because I don't want to spend every day replaying what happened to me. I'm going to forgive the aggressor because I'm going to forgive the aggressor because I don't want to have these fantasies. I don't want to relive every step of my abuse. I don't want to be a slave to my aggressor and have to think about them every day. I don't want resentment. I don't want to be plotting revenge. I don't want to perseverate on what happened, because all of that just feels draining and heavy. I want to work towards healing. So step one, figure out how to forgive. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a day-to-day process. Hopefully each day you feel the results of the forgiveness each day as things come into your mind, as you begin to be resentful of what they did, or you want to show them, you want to hurt them in the same way they hurt you. As you seek revenge, hopefully you begin catching yourself and saying, no, I've forgiven them of that. I need to let them go. Here is a very important second step, and this is where I've landed, and what I really want to stress today is this, particularly if it's a family member. If somebody has ushered in violence to your relationship, if you were a victim of sexual assault, verbal assault, physical assault, any type of violence where it's the blaspheming of the Holy Spirit, the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit, you have been pushed down as not having the same value as the aggressor, and the aggressor is also pushing down the divine within you. That's what makes it, to me, in my mind, kind of the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. If that has happened to you, I would like to suggest that you have every right, and maybe even a responsibility towards your own healing, to not invite this person to your table again. You could even have that mantra in your head, and you could just say, you know what? I've forgiven that individual, but that person will never receive an invitation to my table again, period. And then please take the next step, because whenever you give up a bad habit, I know that's a little bit different twist on it, but whenever you have an empty spot at your table, don't look at that empty spot, because that's just creating more memories. It's going back. It's going to keep developing that anxiety and maybe bring up some of that resentful resentment with what happened. Invite somebody else to sit at your table. There are plenty of people out there. Okay, if you're not going to invite one person to sit at your table again, then you still have, what is it, almost 7 billion people that you can invite to fill that chair at your table. That will be a very important part of your healing. So that's where I've landed on this. Forgive, but give the chair at your table to someone else. Accept that you have forgiven. You're going to work on letting it go, on being healthy, on healing. And you're going to have this mantra. When this person comes to mind, you are going to engage this mantra of saying, I have forgiven that person, and that person will never sit at my table again. All right, namaste, my friends.